Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Brahma Bulletin. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate you one and all. And now, this week's stories. The Super Dispersal Draft is complete. UFL 2024 Super Dispersal Draft Recap. Over a week after the dispersal draft, UFL teams made their selections in the 2024 Super Dispersal Draft. All 8 teams were able to make selections for any player who was available from the 4 USFL and 4 XFL teams that did not carry over from the merger. Each team had a pick in each round until they decided to no longer make picks. The San Antonio Brahmas selected quarterback Quinton Dormany, defensive tackle Trey Botts, offensive tackle B.J. Wilson, defensive back Chris Steele, offensive tackle Darian Parker, wide receiver K.D. Cannon, wide receiver Landon Akers, safety A.J. Hendy, offensive tackle John Yarborough, wide receiver Cody Crest. The Brahmas have a command center. UFL leases offices near Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. According to a report by Dallas Morning News, the UFL has leased offices in Bedford near DFW Airport. The Arlington-based UFL leased space on 2 floors of the building at 3301 Airport Freeway in Bedford. The almost 20,000 square foot offices will be used as operations centers for the UFL San Antonio Brahmas and Michigan Panthers. Each of the UFL's 8 teams has separate operations centers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, according to building owner Skywalker Property Partners. Having the San Antonio Brahmas and Michigan Panthers in the Bedford market is a strong economic catalyst, Aguilar said. We value our asset highly and are hopeful this lease will lead to a long-term relationship between the UFL and Skywalker Property Partners. Some of the ranchers that will lead the herd have been identified. The 2024 San Antonio Brahmas, a work in progress. The 2024 San Antonio Brahmas are a work in progress as they begin their first season in the newly formed UFL. Early in the process, the Brahmas announced that San Antonio would have a new head coach, Wade Phillips, coming from the XFL Houston Roughnecks and replacing former head coach Hines Ward. The current assistant coaches added to the Brahmas coaching staff come from Phillips's 2023 Houston Roughnecks coaching staff. A.J. Smith is the offensive coordinator for the Brahmas, joining Phillips from the Roughnecks 2023 staff. Peyton Pardee, grandson of NFL legend Jack Pardee, was the wide receiver coach for the 2023 Roughnecks and will serve that role for the Brahmas in 2024. Phillips is also bringing Roughnecks offensive line coach Andre Garodi to coach the San Antonio offensive line. Garodi played offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys from 2002 until 2010 and played for the Baltimore Ravens, Chicago Bears, and Oakland Raiders. Phillips mentioned during the interview that he would not be bringing his former defensive coordinator Brian Stewart, and the Brahmas currently need a special teams coordinator. Here's a look at the Brahmas rosters by the numbers. Brahmas completed the UFL Super Dispersal Draft. So the San Antonio Brahmas completed the second round of the first ever United Football Draft on January 15, 2024. In the so-called Super Draft, the Brahmas selected 10 players. In the Super Draft, the Brahmas drafted a quarterback, a defensive tackle, a defensive back, 3 offensive tackles, 3 wide receivers, and a safety. There were 2 former Orlando Guardians, 3 former Houston Roughnecks, and 2 former Seattle Sea Dragons. Now, Landon Akers, who was left unprotected in the first round of the draft, returns from last year's season. There were 5 players that did not play on an XFL or USFL roster last year. With the draft complete, the next phase is free agency, which began on January 16th with players that were not selected able to sign with any team. Now, this includes players that were on NFL rosters. Recently, 20 players were added to the Brahmas roster, bringing the current number to 92 players. Now, the roster limit is 75, and that has to be done by February 14th. So the players that were signed in the free agency so far was running back John Lovett, and he was previously with the Vegas Vipers, safety Vernon Scott, and defensive tackle Kavion Patton, who was previously with the Orlando Guardians. So currently, the roster breakdown is as follows. We have one center, 15 defensive backs, 5 defensive ends, 2 defensive linemen, 7 defensive tackles, 1 guard, 2 kickers, 14 linebackers, 8 offensive linemen, 3 offensive tackles, 5 quarterbacks, 7 running backs, 2 safeties, 4 tackles, 1 tight end, and 15 wide receivers. Now, there were 48 players that were left unprotected, and that breakdown is as follows: 4 cornerbacks, 6 defensive backs, 1 defensive end, 5 defensive linemen, 1 defensive tackle, 1 guard, 5 linebackers, 1 long snapper, 3 offensive linemen, 2 quarterbacks, 1 running back, 2 safeties, 3 tackles, 4 tight ends, and 3 wide receivers. We had 5 unprotected players that were drafted by other UFL teams, and that was defensive tackle Boogie Roberts, who was signed by the DC Defenders, tackle Chidi Okiki, also signed by the DC Defenders, tackle Norman Price, signed by the Houston Roughnecks, cornerback Terrell Bonds, signed by the Birmingham Stallions, and safety Cameron Kelly, signed by the St. Louis Battlehawks. Offensive lineman Brandon Border signed with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the Canadian Football League recently. And just recently, lawn snapper Rex Sonhara signed a letter of intent to return to San Antonio, per sources. And that's it. That's the video. Pretty short and sweet this week. Just wanted to give a quick overview of what happened. Not going to go into detail about player breakdowns and stats and all that stuff. I just wanted to give a broad stroke, like a sweeping stroke of what happened over the past week. Now we're still waiting for a schedule. As of this recording, none has been released. It was widely thought that we would get a schedule released this week, but so far, nothing. Maybe we'll get it next week. Maybe not. We'll see. If I was a betting man, I would think that it's going to be the Brahmas and the Roughnecks in the first game of the season. I would think it'll probably be in San Antonio. I'm just spitballing. That's just my personal opinion. It's not any sources, not any rumors. I'm just kind of thinking it'll be cool to have the so-called San Antonio Roughnecks play the Houston Roughnecks in game one. It's kind of like a nice hook, if you will. But that's it for this week. I think it's time for this Brahma to be put out to pasture, at least until the next episode. Until then, San Antonio, horns forward.